Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, your home for weekly information and inspiration to help you get the graduate job of your dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast with your host, James Curran. The Graduate Job Podcast is your weekly home for all things related to helping you on your journey to finding that amazing job. Each week I bring together the best minds in the industry, speaking to leading authors, entrepreneurs, coaches and bloggers who bring decades of experience into a bite-sized weekly 30-minute show. Put simply, this is a show I wish I had a decade ago when I graduated. And a very warm welcome to you for episode 63 of the Graduate Job Podcast. It's a special episode on a topic I wish I had thought about when I was looking for a graduate job, as it's advice which would certainly have helped. This week I'm rejoined by Sarah Stimson, who first appeared on the show back in episode 7, when we discussed the topic of how to get a graduate job in PR. Today though, we will explore why you, yes you dear listener, should get a mentor to help you as you look for a graduate job. We explore what exactly a mentor is and what they do. We discuss why they're so useful in helping you look for a graduate job, top tips for how you can find a mentor, and what exactly to say to them when you ask so that they'll say yes. We also delve into brilliant advice about how to set the relationship up at the beginning so you both get something from it. Now, if you're listening to this thinking a mentor sounds maybe a bit pretentious or too much like hard work, I can understand where you're coming from. And after university, I probably would have agreed. But stick with it. Have a listen, because if you follow the advice in this episode and get a mentor, I guarantee it will improve your employability. Guarantee it. Or your money back. On this free podcast. As always, all links to everything we discuss and a full transcript, which has kindly been typed up by Annabelle, can be found over at graduatejobpodcast.com/mentoring. Do head on over to the website, as you can find links to all of the other 62 shows which cover everything from assessment centres, job interviews, how to negotiate a raise, how to get jobs with law firms, tech startups, you name it, we've got it. A cornucopia of brilliant graduate job advice. And it's all free. So go over to graduatejobpodcast.com and fill your boots. Before we start though, let's have a little message from today's sponsor, who are careergym.com. Career Gym is the #1 place for you to undertake all of your psychometric tests which you'll face when you apply for a graduate job. You can practice verbal, numerical and abstract reasoning tests, all produced by experts and exactly the same as the ones you'll see in the real tests. You can just practice them, or you can do them in exam mode under time pressure, and they come all with detailed explanations and solutions, so you can track your progress to see how you compare against your peers. Now, it's never too early to start revising for numerical tests, as you might not get much notice before the test, so you want to make sure you're ready to go. So pull your finger out and start revising now. I've been recommending this site for years to the clients I coach, and it comes very highly recommended. And what's better is if you use the code GJP, that's capital letters GJP, you'll get 20% off all of their tests. You can't say fairer than that. So head on over to www.careergym.com and use the code GJP to get 20% off and start practicing today. Now on with the show. I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show today Chief Executive at the Taylor Bennett Foundation, Editor of prcareers.co.uk, Author of the excellent How to Get a Job in PR, and star of episode 7 of the Graduate Job Podcast. A very warm welcome to Sarah Stimson.
Hello, James. Nice to see you again, or hear you again even.
Yeah, and Sarah, can you believe it was 2.5 years since we recorded that first episode?
I know, I've had a whole new baby since then. We've moved on.
Congratulations, and the promotion as well to Chief Executive.
Thank you.
And we'll touch upon that as we go through the show. And for listeners who haven't heard your first appearance in episode 7 on how to get a job in PR, would you like to introduce yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I run a small charity called the Taylor Bennett Foundation, which is focused on improving diversity in the public relations industry. And specifically, we do that through offering traineeship programs to Black and ethnic minority graduates. At the end of last year, we also launched a mentoring program, which is why we're talking about mentoring today. So we've been incredibly successful. So 83% of our alumni now work in PR.
Oh, brilliant.
And we have supporters from, companies and organisations that supported us from 10 Downing Street and Buckingham Palace all the way through to big PR agencies and small boutique companies. So it's been enormously successful.
Excellent. And in the show notes over at graduatejobpodcast.com/mentoring, we'll be linking to everything we discussed today, including the Taylor Bennett Foundation, so you can check it out for yourself and see the great work that they do there. And with the Taylor Bennett Foundation, how many people are you taking on each year now?
So on the traineeship programs, we only take between 18 and 24 a year, so it's a very elite group. But with the mentoring program, we don't have any limit. So we launched in January, and so far we've partnered 45 graduates with mentors, and our aim is to reach 100 by the end of this year.
Excellent. So listeners, perfect opportunity with that scheme and to find out more about mentoring. And as I mentioned, if you want to listen to our first episode on how to get a job in PR, check out the show notes and we'll be linking to that episode there. So as we mentioned, Sarah, today we're going to explore the topic of mentoring and why it can be so valuable in helping you to get a graduate job. So starting at the beginning, what is a mentor and what do they do?
So a mentor is a person that can help guide you through career choices and through your application process if you're a graduate. So lots of people who are already established in careers have mentors, and they might be looking at how they progress in their career, how they make their next step into the next job. But actually mentors are particularly useful for people right at the beginning of their careers who are thinking about what they want to do next and how they want to get there. So it might be somebody who can give you their own lived experience of the particular career that you're looking to move into. It'll be somebody who's happy to open up their little black book of contacts and give you the networks of people that you might not necessarily have access to, and somebody to be a sounding board. So if you have, a job application, you're not quite sure how to go about it, or you have an interview coming up and you're a bit nervous about it, it could be somebody that can offer you experience and guidance on how you might approach those things.
Mm-hmm. And what's the difference then between a mentor and a coach? What would be the difference there?
So typically a coach will be someone you pay. That's really the biggest difference. So I have an executive coach, and it tends to be coaches tend to work at a more senior level. And it also a coach doesn't necessarily have experience in the industry you're working in. So it might be someone who, so for me, for example, I've been looking at my leadership style and improving my work as a leader. So that doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's worked within the charity sector or somebody within the PR sector, but somebody who has an understanding of leadership. So that's really the biggest difference between coaches and mentors. Mentors tend to be unpaid. They tend to be volunteers, and they'll be specifically looking at a particular kind of industry. That's where mentors work best. So rather than just having somebody who's, you've just plucked out of the sky, it's somebody who's got the kind of experience that you want yourself, so they can guide you through their own career.
Mm-hmm. Now, listeners might be thinking, are there any experience of mentors is on the X Factor when they get through to the end and they sort of, get assigned a mentor. And why is it important at the early stage of your career to have someone who can help guide you?
I think what mentors offer that you don't get from just not having one is that they can give you the value of their experience. And actually that's true of X Factor too. So when you look at who the mentors are on X Factor, they offer their own experience. So Sharon Osbourne will talk about what it's like to be behind the scenes of a big band, for example, because that's what she did with her husband. And Simon Cowell will talk about his experience as being a record producer because that's what he's done. So it's using your own experience to help the people in front of you. And so at the beginning of your career, it's one of those things where you can take the experience of somebody before you and use that to your advantage, so you can learn from their mistakes and you can learn from their experiences without having to make them yourself, and that's a really powerful thing.
No, definitely, because everyone makes mistakes as they go through their career. So if you can, as you said, learn from other people, learn the shortcuts, learn the advice that they wish they'd had at your age, then you can you can get ahead and make a difference. And
exactly right, and that's quite often a motivating factor for the mentors themselves, that they want to help people not make the mistakes that they did.
And in researching for the episode today, there's an academic study apparently which shows that people with mentors earn higher salaries, are promoted more frequently, and report higher job satisfaction than those who don't. So I'll link to that study in the show notes. But there's a few good reasons for you to get a mentor.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of what they will do for you, so what will a mentor do and what won't they do? Where sort of does the line blur?
It'll depend on the program that you join. So if you join a specific program that's laid out with rules and regulations, a bit like the one we run at the foundation, then there will be a kind of guidance on what mentors will be able to offer you, and you stick within those guidance. But actually, more and more people are finding mentors on their own. And then it's down to you and the mentor to lay down the kind of rules of that relationship and how you're going to operate. So for us at the foundation, for example, the rules really are that the mentors and the mentees must meet face-to-face at least 3 times in the space of 3 months. And the rest of the time they spend on phone and email. And then we give the mentors guidance on how to help their mentees. So it's things like in week 1, you might want to talk about broad career choices, and in week 2 you might want to move on to narrowing that down to which sector and discipline they want to work in. And by the time you get to month 2, you're looking at how they can use the experience they've had so far to write a brilliant CV. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the relationship or the end of the mentoring period, you would hope they would be moving on to, they're at the stage of applying for jobs and getting interviews, and the mentors are helping them into their first weeks into their new roles. And some mentors then go on to be mentors for longer than the 3 to 6 months that we set out, and they keep those relationships because they've built a friendship and a bond with the mentee. So it really does depend on whether you're going through it on a established program or whether you're finding a mentor yourself.
Mm-hmm. So maybe then breaking down the 2 routes you mentioned, so the established program and finding one yourself. Maybe let's take the established program first. So I wasn't actually aware that there was too many established programs out there to find mentors. So could we start there with the Taylor Bennett Foundation's one? Where else would people find them?
So the Media Trust offer, obviously my experience is all within the media and PR industry, so that's where I know most about mentoring. But the Media Trust offer a mentoring program, and so do some individual companies. So you might find if you go to the big 4 like Ernst & Young and KPMG and places like that they'll have mentoring programs in place. Some places only offer mentoring for their own staff, so it might be a senior person that mentors a more junior member of staff, and some places offer external mentoring. So the Brightside Trust, for example, is another organisation which is exclusively for mentoring, and organisations like Career Ready also offer mentoring, but for people in schools rather than at university. So there are programs out there, but you're right, they are quite few and far between.
Mm-hmm. And think specifically about your mentoring program. What is it? Just for people looking to get into PR?
Yes, so our program is specifically for ethnic minorities. The people that are eligible to apply must be either a graduate or a final year student at university, and they must be looking to get into the PR and communications industry. So it is incredibly niche and very specific. But even so, we have more application. We have lots and lots of people apply, and we are constantly looking for new mentors. And we are very, very lucky that we've had a good response to a recent press campaign where we asked for more people to step up and volunteer. And actually, people are very willing to help improve diversity in the industry, and so are happy to give their experience to those graduates.
Oh, brilliant! And just sticking with the program. So what's the you mentioned you get lots of more applications than you've got places for. What's the process you go then to whittle down the people who are successful?
So there are 2 ways to get onto our mentoring program. Either you can just apply through our website, and there's an application form that you fill in which asks you about your own experience, and then it asks you about your own knowledge of PR and which areas of PR you're particularly interested in, which makes it easier for us to match those people with a mentor. And from that, there will be a telephone interview with our mentoring manager, who will then decide whether or not we think you're suitable to be mentored by someone. And the other way to get onto our program is that when we run our traineeship program 4 times a year, we run an assessment day for that program. And the candidates who don't make it through to the actual training program will quite often be offered a mentor. So we'll say, well, you didn't get a place on our training program, but actually we think with a mentor you could be really successful, and we give them that as an option. So quite a lot of graduates have taken that option.
And I'll advise any listeners who are interested to check out the first episode that we did, so episode 7, which goes into more detail specifically around the Taylor Bennett Foundation program and the schemes there, and just how brilliant it is. So moving on to then the other way of finding a mentor, so the less structured route. How would you recommend that people go about finding a mentor in their field?
I think the biggest misconception about mentors is that it has to be someone very, very senior, and so it can be seen as being quite intimidating, approaching like the CEO of an MD of a company or something. But actually, some of the best mentors we've had have been only 2 or 3 years into their careers, and so they're not that far ahead of where graduates may be themselves, because they have recent experience of what it's like to find a job and to start in a new profession. So my advice really would be to try and find people in the industry that you're interested in who are only a few steps ahead of you, really, who would be happy to give you their time. And actually, because they're approached less than the more senior people, you might find it easier. You might find them more open to giving you their time. So your best bet is to look at the websites of the companies who you really want to work for, and look at who their employees are and write to them directly and say, I'd be really grateful for some of your time. I would really like to maybe meet you 3 times over the next 3 months and perhaps pick your brains on something. The other alternative is to go straight to social media and look for people who might be active on social media who you can engage with there, and then ask them directly whether or not they'd be happy to offer you some mentoring time.
That's brilliant advice, and tools such as LinkedIn is so useful for finding alumni from your university who might work at the firms you're interested in, and going in that route of, if you've already got that connection, and finding people who work at your desired companies and making contact with them there.
Absolutely.
With the initial contact though, Sarah, would you recommend that people explicitly say, I'm looking for a mentor, as opposed to, I'm looking for some help, and being as structured as, as you mentioned, I want to meet 3 times over the next 3 months, or trying to keep it more general so they don't scare people off?
I think actually being quite specific in what you ask me for is helpful. I know I get lots of emails of people asking me for help and advice, and that's fine. But actually, when people lay it out and say, I appreciate that mentoring can take a lot of time, and actually I don't want enormous amounts of your time. I would only, I would really like to have maybe an email once a month or a phone call once a month, and we could structure it as a mentoring relationship. And this is kind of what I would expect you to get out of it, and this is what I would expect to get out of it. I think that could be really helpful for the person at the other end who thinks, right, well, I know what I'm letting myself in for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting it. I've not thought about it like that. And spinning it around then, as a mentor yourself, what do you get out of the relationship?
So it's incredibly interesting. The mentors that we've had find that actually it helps them reflect on their own careers and what they have achieved and how they have got there and what they want to do next. So it's really good about taking stock of where they are in their own careers. It also helps them to think about how to help the next generation of people. So whether that's people in their own team or people that they might be employing, but thinking about how it improves their management and leadership skills, improves their communication skills, and looks at how do you communicate with somebody that hasn't got any experience at all. It's so different to having to communicate with your day-to-day colleagues. And also, it's just the opportunity to give back to somebody. So that nice feeling that you've helped somebody else, which is it's a bit unquantifiable really, but it's that feeling that you have given back some time and you've helped somebody else move on in their career is actually really rewarding.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling when I get emails from listeners who've benefited from the podcast or finding it useful, or helped it with specific aspects, or gone on to get a job. It's it makes it all worthwhile when you get them. With the people that you mentor, then what does a good mentee look like? What's the difference between the people who really get something out of it and the people where you think this isn't working?
Yeah, well, the best mentees are the ones who take the responsibility for the relationship. So mentors typically will be employed already somewhere, and so will be quite busy people. And so it really relies on the mentee to keep that relationship going by making sure that they're signposting, that they're reaching certain, points in their relationship. So it might be that they say, right at the beginning of the relationship, by the end of the first month, I would really love to have a new CV. And so it gives both the mentor and the mentee a goal to work towards. So those have, in our experience, the worst mentees have been the ones who drop off the face of the planet, and then we have the mentors calling us up saying, I really want to help this person, but I never hear from them. I don't know how to get hold of them. So, and that could be the biggest downfall really for mentor relationships. So the best mentees have some kind of idea of what they want to get out of it by the end of it, and they work towards that goal.
Yep, no, that sounds good. And have you had a mentor yourself who's helped you?
I haven't had an official mentor. Perhaps I should get one, actually. I do have a coach. So I employed a coach not that long ago, actually, a couple of months ago, because I wanted to look at specific things in my own career. I have had unofficial mentors, so people I've worked for, and there's been a couple of people who I've worked with in the past who I still see quite regularly. We go for coffee or we go for lunch or something, and I use them as a sounding board for ideas. So if I'm looking to make a career move, or if I want to launch a new project or something, and I go to them and say, is this really a crazy idea? Have I thought this through properly? And sometimes they'll bounce things back at me. So there wasn't any such thing as a mentor when I was a grad, which was a very long time ago, over 25 years ago. And they are relatively new invention, a bit like internships have come over from the States. Mentoring seems to have followed that.
No, definitely, and I wish I'd had one, formal one, when I was looking for a graduate job. It would have made it much easier, just having that guidance to sort of show you the path of where you might need to go.
Yeah, I wish I'd had one. It would have made life a lot easier.
So, thinking then from a mentee's perspective, how do you know if you've got a good mentor? What are the characteristics that they should be demonstrating in their work?
So the best mentors are people who are really, really open to sharing their own experience. So talking about the mistakes that they've made, as well as talking about the successes that they've had, because it's all very well saying, "Oh, I'm brilliant at my job, and I've worked really hard, and I've got up to be account director level." But if you don't talk about the things that you have made mistakes on, then the people that are being mentored feel slightly like, "Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to live up to this. How do I beat that?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that those people are open to it. It's also important that they're really good listeners, because the best mentors are the people that allow the mentees themselves to do some reflection and think about how they're going to get to where they want to be. And the really successful mentoring relationships we've had have been mentors who have opened up their networks for the mentees. So it might be someone who really needs some work experience somewhere, and they've said, "Oh, I've got a friend who works over at such and such or something," and get their foot in the door to help them get some work experience.
And what sort of feedback have you had from people who've gone through your program?
So it's been incredibly successful. It's from both sides, the mentors and the mentees. The mentors have talked about how rewarding it was to feel like they've actually made a difference to somebody's life, and that they have learned a lot about themselves during the process. And the mentees have talked about access to the industry that they wouldn't have had before, and helpful advice and guidance, and making them think about things that they may not have thought about before. So it may be really basic things like what to wear to an interview, for example. And they go to their mentor and say, "I've got this interview at somewhere. Should I wear a suit?" And they say, "Absolutely not. Everybody there wears jeans and t-shirts and Converse. Don't turn up in a suit. You'll never fit in." So it's been really rewarding watching those people change over the course of their mentoring, and then going off and getting jobs.
And it's just a 3-month program.
Yeah, ours is only 3 months, and that's because we don't want it to be too onerous on the mentors, so that they don't feel like it's this massive commitment. But actually, as I said, quite a lot of them have then gone on to remain mentors to those people beyond the formal program, because they've built that relationship with them.
Yep. I guess it's almost like a dating relationship of how do you draw it to a close, or if you want to one party wants to keep going and the other one doesn't. So how many people have continued it after the end of the 3 months?
I'd have to ask our mentoring manager. I would suspect around half.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, I reckon around half, because 3 months actually isn't a very long time.
No.
And you can get the basics done. So we send a list of things that we would expect the mentors to achieve in those 3 months, and most of them do that. But actually, once you then start a new job, you need a whole new different level of advice on how to navigate the kind of working experience. And so lots of people have remained friends and remained mentors through that.
Would it be, do you think, a question of horses for courses? So you get one specific mentor who might help you get the job, and then you'd have a different mentor, at the firm when you arrive. Or do you see the benefit of keeping one person throughout the entire time, or is it good to mix and match?
I think it depends on the person. So for some people, they'll keep their mentors for their entire career, and that person will always be a few steps ahead of them. Other people might actually leapfrog their mentor at some point, so become more senior than them, and end up being the person that's the employer rather than the employee. So that could be an interesting relationship.
Yeah, that's when you know your advice is really good, when they when they jump ahead of you.
We've had lots of trainees who earn a lot more money than I do, I tell you. They've gone on to be very successful. And for some people, they use a mentor right at the beginning of their career, and then actually once they get to work, they tend to use their line managers as their guidance. So they don't tend to have an external mentor until they get more senior, and then they might look for a coach of some sort. So it really just depends on the person.
Yep. And what final advice, Sarah, would you give someone who's in two minds about getting a mentor?
My advice is you've nothing to lose by trying it. So you can establish a mentoring relationship, and for both sides, you can say, let's try it out and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work for one side or the other, there's no pressure to continue that relationship. So you have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain by trying mentoring.
Nah, definitely, that's completely true. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's it's well worth asking, because when you get to the interview, and if you're able to talk about how you've got experience of that company or your knowledge of the industry because of your mentor, and it's only going to stand you in good stead. It shows the initiative of going out and getting a mentor. It's going to put you ahead of everybody else who's going to be interviewing.
Quite right.
So time, unfortunately, Sarah, is running away with us. So moving on to a couple of quick-fire questions that we ask in each episode. So I've got your previous answers from when you were last on the show, so see if you got some different book recommendations. So the first question, what book would you recommend to our listeners that they should read to help with their job search?
So I'm going to recommend a book which is a bit left field. It's not specifically related to job hunting or mentoring, actually, but I read it fairly recently, and it made me think a lot about career progression. And that book is called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Good book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it talks a lot about how success happens. So how some of it is luck, and how you make your success, and how some success is based on what your environment you come from. So it really made me think about why particular people are incredibly successful and why some people are not quite so successful. And I would really recommend that everybody reads it, because it would make you think a lot about your own career progression.
Excellent. Brilliant recommendation. And listeners, you'll be able to find the link to that book over in the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/mentoring. And the next question, Sarah, what internet resource would you point our listeners to?
For mentoring in particular, the Brightside website is worth looking at, because they specialise. There's a charity that specialises only in mentoring, and they do some mentoring for younger people. But actually, I think all of the advice that they give is really worth looking at.
Brilliant. I'll have to check that one out myself. That sounds a brilliant resource. And finally, what one tip, Sarah, would you give people that they can implement today to help on their job search?
My tip would be to create a really, really brief CV, so an infographic or a half a page CV that you can send out on social media to people who might be potential mentors, because it's a really good way of catching people's attention without having to send reams and reams of information. Wow,
that's a new one, but I absolutely love it. That's a brilliant idea, and that would I can see that being really useful and really powerful if you sent it out. And with websites like Fiverr, you could probably get someone to knock it up for you for very little amount of money as well. So that's
you can do it. Something like Canva is absolutely free to use. You can do it yourself.
Even better. Better. We love a free tool, and I will link to that again in the show notes. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back on the show. Before we finish, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and the work that you do?
The Taylor Bennett Foundation website is a good port of call, so just Google us and we pop up. Or I'm around on Twitter quite a lot, and my handle there is Guru, which is GOOROO. So if you drop me a line on Twitter, I'm the most responsive on there.
But if you are going to get in touch asking for Sarah's help as your mentor, make sure you tailor the approach in the right way, make sure you send that infographic across. See if it's successful. Sarah, thank you so much for appearing on the Graduate Job Podcast.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
My thanks again to the brilliant Sarah Stimson. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the first episode with her on how to get a job in PR. Links in the show notes with everything else you need to know and a full transcript over at graduatejobpodcast.com/mentoring. Do make sure that you give getting a mentor a go. It might be scary, but is it scarier than not getting the job of your dreams? What's the worst that could happen? But when you do get one, it will really, really help your job search and make you stand out from the thousands and thousands and thousands of people also applying for that graduate job. If you would prefer more of a coaching relationship, then I'm available to help coach you get a graduate job. I only coach at most 3 clients at a time, so I can devote my full attention to each of them, but I do have spaces available at the moment. So head on over to my coaching page on the website, which is graduatejobpodcast.com/coaching for more information. Ultimately, it's about what is best suited for you in how you want to get ahead and get that graduate job. Time now for a quick iTunes review, which comes from Bootridge over in Canada, who said 5 stars, great information on positioning yourself for employment. Short and sweet. Thanks, Bootridge, for taking the time to leave that review. And if you've been enjoying the show, which I guess you must have been because you made it to this point at the end, then that'll be you. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you downloaded or streamed this from, and please leave me a nice review. Failing that, you can just email me over at hello@graduatejobpodcast.com and just say hello. All that's left is to say I hope you enjoyed the episode today, but more importantly, I hope you use it and apply it. See you next week.